The Log. I'm Charles Purcell. So I did the time math when I woke up this morning. Did you do that? So it's, let's see, it's 6 o'clock, but it's actually 7 o'clock because we put the clocks back an hour. Yeah, you think about it when you go to bed that Saturday night. You think about, okay, well, I'm going to bed at 1 in the morning, but it's only midnight because we're setting our clocks back, and you play all these mind games with yourself. You wake up Sunday morning, you sleep in a little bit. Oh, it's 8 o'clock. Oh, but it's actually, wait a minute. It's actually, you got to think about it for a second because you're a little groggy. You're not quite awake yet. It's actually 9 o'clock. Wow, I really did sleep in. And you think about it again then that night because then that's the first time it gets dark early. And you go to bed and maybe you still think about it one more time. You're not quite adjusted. All right, I'm going to bed at 11 o'clock, but it's actually midnight, so I guess this is pretty. And then this morning, Monday morning now, I still thought about it, but really this is the last now. That's your limit. You can't be thinking about it anymore. You're all done now, okay? There's a statute of limitations here. All right. Well, the only really important thing is that tomorrow is November 3rd, officially election day in these United States, with so much early voting, just millions and millions, 100 million people. I don't know how many people. Is it it's close to 100 million people have already voted. Well, here, I got my little Google machine. Why don't I just look that up right now? How many Americans have voted so far? Well, this is 6 hours ago. I don't think any polls have been open the last 6 hours, so this is accurate. Let's see. Let's see here. All right, here we are. According to The Guardian, how many people have voted so far? Let's see. Michael McDonald, University of Florida professor who runs the U.S. Elections Project, said 93,131,017 people had voted as of Sunday. This is interesting here. The voting eligible population is 239.2 million. And we're expecting, 160 million to vote this year, I think I heard somebody say. So, yeah, tomorrow, official election day, when they start counting the votes, early voting has ended in some states. I know in my Wisconsin, it's all over. And I do not know about the drop boxes. Are they still available? I think they're still available. And it doesn't even vary by state. It varies by municipality. Different cities, different towns, different counties. Oh my God, it's convoluted. Everybody's got a different thing going. If you're not sure, just contact your local elections office. If you have to do it tomorrow, be safe. Take your PPE along with you, a snack, some water. You may have to be in line for quite a while. We've heard stories 5 to 7 hours, even in the early voting. God, it could be just a nightmare tomorrow. Well, speaking of tomorrow, I did test out the whole Facebook room situation that I've been promising. I think I've got it figured out. I feel pretty inadequate when I try to do such things. I don't know. I should be better at this. I'm really falling behind. Can you relate to this? I feel bad. I feel old. I'm falling behind in my tech savvy, especially when it comes to social media. I should be better at this. It's like I go on Twitter, and I was like, how does this work? Yeah, I think I figured out how to do a Facebook room. So go to the Charles Purcell Facebook page. I'll pin the information to the top of the page, so it'll be right there, the first thing in the feed, okay? I'll open up the room when the first polls start to close in the East. And I'm not promising anything except just a connection. I'm still going to be glued to the television. It's like being in the room with somebody else, right? We don't have to talk the entire time, but occasionally, if somebody wants to chime in with something. So 6 o'clock Central Time, Tuesday night, I'll open up the room, and you can find the link at the top of the Facebook page, Charles Purcell. Okay? I have another recommendation for you. I think starting at the same time. I'm not sure. I think they start at 6 o'clock Central. And that would be Imprecision 2020, OTM's election night live stream. OTM, for you insiders, stands for On the Media. If you're not familiar with On the Media, you should be. It's a very good weekly program. Hosts Brooke Gladstone and Bob Garfield. Weekly program on public radio. Check your local listings for time. They do a very good show. Nothing too groundbreaking. It's just your standard NPR fare, but they talk about politics and the news, and especially from a kind of a media critic angle, and they're very good on the media. Yeah, so check out Imprecision 2020, OTM's election night live stream. I may have that going too. I'm going to have all my devices going. I'll probably have a couple of different televisions tuned to. I'm going to set up Election Central over here. You know, and some of my friends are saying that they're just going to turn everything off and just go away. They're just going to go sit in the woods for a while until this thing is over. And I don't blame them, and I kind of admire that, actually. But I can't do it. I can't do it. So I'm just going to go... I'm going to go full the other way. I'm going to have 2 or 3 television sets all going at the same time. I'm going to have a tablet with our Facebook room that you and I are going to be together. And then I'll have another tablet or laptop with Imprecision 2020 with Brooke and Bob. I'm just going to have it all going. I can't help it. I know it's probably not good for me. I shouldn't do it. Can't help it. I'm going to do it. So what are your plans? And we know, we've all heard by now, at least we should have. Well, my understanding is at 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern, so 5 Mountain, 4 p.m. Pacific, that's when the first polls close. And the ones we care about are Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. Now, if they have some results, now North Carolina can count their ballots up until, I think I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, November 12th. They have 9 days to count their mail-in ballots. So hopefully they'll get on it, and it won't actually take them 9 days, because North Carolina will be a very interesting early return. If they can do a good job counting their votes, and if they can say with any confidence that they've got a winner, that's going to tell us quite a lot. As, of course, is Georgia and Florida. If those 3 states go heavily to Joe, then you can just put on your dancing shoes and get ready, because it's going to be dancing in the street Tuesday night. If they're close, or if they go for the Orange Menace, now we've got a little bit of a slog ahead of us. Because now we got to wait for Arizona, we got to wait for the Blue Wall, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. And now we got trouble. Now we're going to have to wait. Now it might not be the night of, quite likely anyway. Nobody really wants to predict this. Nobody knows. Day after, take a day, take 2, take 4, take a week, take a month. Who knows at this point? But those 3 early states, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, if they go big for Joe, oh, mercy. We're going to have a night. We're going to have a night. That's going to tell us quite a lot. So, yeah, I can't not do this. I have to be just in this thing. All right. That brings us to this. We've got to talk about the possibility of intimidation and violence. There's the kind that happens before and during the voting, which we've already seen. The Orange Menace Taliban careening around in their trucks. They've already barreled through Black Lives Matter demonstrators. And then yesterday they tried to run a Biden bus off the road. We've heard all this news. So there's that kind of intimidation, voter suppression, violence already happening as we speak. And we're afraid, some people are quite concerned, that that's going to continue on and really accelerate all through the day tomorrow. Now, the second kind of violence we need to be concerned about is what happens when the polls close. What happens Tuesday night, November 3rd, when the last polls close? Depending on where the race stands, depending on what we're finding out, now there's a possibility of a whole new wave of violence. Now, before I go any further, let me say, I hope I'm wrong. I don't want to be a part of a lot of unnecessary hype. God forbid, when this is all said and done, that we find out we've all been manipulated by Russian bots and Russian trolls, stirring up all this crap. I'm sure it may very well be the case. I'm sure they've got a hand in it. To what extent, I'm not quite sure. But you know they're loving this. I mean, we all know how they work. We've had plenty of reports on this from Mueller and from the intelligence community. We know what they do. They exploit the divisions in America that already exist, and they throw fuel on the fire. And so I'm sure they've got a hand in this already. But you don't have to believe in fake news to see what's right in front of your eyes. And the kind of behavior we've seen, the militia types, the scheme to kidnap and maybe even murder the governor of Michigan, and again, the antics over this weekend with the Biden bus, and then other places, including the New Jersey Garden State Parkway. Yeah, several lanes shut down. For a while, it was just stopped, completely shut down. And all these deplorables in their trucks and their flags, beeping their horns and walking around on the highway. Yeah, there's just it's right in front of our eyes. It's happening. Don Jr. bragging about it online, inciting it. Hey guys, go have fun. The Orange Menace himself reacting to the Biden bus that was nearly run off the road. I love Texas, he tweets with video of the incident. And then when we learn that the FBI is going to investigate this, the Orange Menace tweets, in my opinion, these patriots did nothing wrong. Instead, the FBI and justice should be investigating the terrorists, anarchists, and agitators of Antifa who run around burning down our Democrat-run cities and hurting our people. So we don't need Russian bots and Russian trolls to hype the division and to incite violence. We've got the President of the United States doing it. I'm just hoping what we've seen so far is it. I'm hoping beyond hope that it just doesn't increase from here. So now, as I said, there are really two things to be concerned about. One is the violence that's already begun, and if and to what extent it continues through Election Day. And then, depending on the results when the polls close, then it takes a whole new turn. If it goes for Joe and a lot of people are out dancing in the street, how do the deplorables react to that? Maybe badly. On the other hand, if, as the evening wears on tomorrow night, the numbers look good for the Orange Menace, and he tries to declare an early victory and all the deplorables have his back, what does that look like on the streets? Because I can't see any option. I think the streets are going to be filled regardless. If the Orange Menace tries to pull his little trick, which he's come right out and said, again, we don't need Russian bots to make things up when the President of the United States says things out of his own orange little anus mouth. And he's told us in his own words what he's going to do. Forbes tells us that these are the places we should be most concerned about. Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Oregon should be on high alert, warns the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project. North Carolina, Texas, Virginia, California, and New Mexico are at moderate risk of increased activity. According to the study, militia groups in these states have seen bumps in recruitment and training. They've been substantially engaged in anti-coronavirus lockdown protests. Many have cultivated relationships with law enforcement. Yeah. Militia groups, in fact, we should probably talk about this too. There's a great article in this month's Atlantic on the relationship between militia, military, and police forces. Yeah, cultivated relationships with law enforcement. All this indicates that there is an increased risk of political violence before, during, or after the election. These trends raise significant concerns for the security of the election period, how seriously the election results will be taken, and the response to whichever winner is selected. It is yet unclear how many of these groups will react, no matter the vote's outcome. So, I really hope that in a couple of days we can look back and listen to this program and we can say then how ridiculous I sounded today. Oh, we shouldn't have been hyping the fear. Nothing happened. It was all, that's my greatest hope, that I'm just 100% wrong right now. I hope this sounds ridiculous in 2 days. I really do. But as you've seen, Macy's made the big headlines, but stores around the country in major cities are boarding up their windows. They're getting ready for violence in the streets. The White House itself, we found out last night, going to be in lockdown. Jeff Bennett, the White House on lockdown. A federal law enforcement source tells NBC that beginning tomorrow, crews will build a non-scalable fence to secure the White House complex, Ellipse, and Lafayette Square. 250 National Guardsmen have been put on standby, reporting to Metro police officials. That was the little game they played when the BLM demonstrations were happening around the White House, and he wanted to take his little stroll over to the church and hold up his Bible. And also the game they played in Portland and in other cities where they have federal law enforcement. So now you got your border agents, you got your Capitol Police, you got ICE, whatever goons the Orange Menace can get his hands on, he's going to have them deployed. And there's such projection going on here. I mean, I'll admit it, I've been saying we have to fill the streets. But I've also been saying, and it's 99.99% of the left is saying zero violence. There's that very tiny sliver of those on the left who are ready, willing, and able to meet violence with violence. That's a debate we've already had on the left. And that's how Antifa came into everybody's consciousness. Because those who labeled themselves Antifa were putting themselves forward as kind of tough guys who are going to go to Charlottesville and stand between the Nazis and the counter-demonstrators. And if the Nazis wanted to get violent, Antifa, at least the guys who thought this way, they would be there to defend the counter-demonstrators, even if it required violence. Now, the left had a huge debate about this, that the right never heard about, the mainstream media never really talked much about, but those of us on the left knew all about it at the time. There was a great debate, and peace has won that debate. The vast majority, all but a tiny, tiny, less than 1% sliver of those on the left, are absolutely committed to nonviolence. So, when some of us say we got to fill the streets Tuesday night, either to dance and party or to say no to the shenanigans, we're talking peaceful demonstrations. But the militia types, the truckers, the deplorables, they just can't wait to instigate some violence, to get their fists flying, to get bullets flying. They can't wait. And then the rhetoric coming from the political allies of the militia invent this totally fictitious left-wing mob that just does not exist, except, again, for that tiny, tiny 0.001% sliver. So they invent this fictitious left-wing mob that's going to be out creating violence and burning things down. I mean, talk about projection. That's their go-to little neurosis. Right-wing deplorables who use violence as a tool, claiming it's justified because of quote-unquote left-wing mobs. And it's not just the militia deplorables, and you can't just laugh them off. As tempting as that is, would love to just be able to laugh them off. They are such comic characters. They are such moronic buffoons. But the fact is they are armed to the teeth. And the fact is, I mentioned this article, which I'm going to share. I got lots of links to share with you today. Make sure to go to the Facebook page. I'm going to share a lot of really good links with you. This Atlantic story by Mark Giglio, in-depth investigative report on how the militia movement has recruited military, ex-military, and law enforcement officers. Talking about the Oath Keepers. These guys consider Kyle Rittenhouse a hero, who, by the way, has been extradited now to Wisconsin. The judge upheld that. Been going on for a long time. We've heard about these militias for a long time, but now their activity is at such a fever pitch. They have their biggest advocate sitting in the Oval Office. They've got police forces in cities around the country just openly supporting them. We've heard over the summer and into the fall of police chiefs and county sheriffs just coming right out, openly refusing to enforce laws regarding the virus, refusing to enforce mask mandates or crowd size limitations, curfews, anything like that. They just come right out, say, no, we're not going to enforce that law. We don't care. We've seen how they literally coordinate and partner with the militia in places like Kenosha and Portland. And now it all comes down to what some of them view as their biggest showdown yet, their big chance to instigate this civil war that they're just salivating for. Election Day. So yeah, I'll post the link to this Atlantic article. A pro-Trump militant group has recruited thousands of police, soldiers, and veterans. An Atlantic investigation reveals who they are and what they might do on Election Day. Yeah, it's a coalition now on that side. It's the militia groups, it's the cops, it's ex-military. The Orange Menace now has weighed in. He's going to offer ICE agents, other federal law enforcement, CBP, Federal Protective Service, Homeland Security. Yeah, they've got a full-on domestic military force at the ready here. I don't mean to scare you. It's just a fact. And I'll keep saying it until I can't think of ways to say it. Nonviolence is the only answer. Massive, massive demonstrations. 100% nonviolent. The minute you throw a punch, they win. I know it's not easy. I mean, for God's sake, we saw police in Alamance County, North Carolina, pepper spraying children as demonstrators held an event to march to the polls. They've been marching for months. There's nothing new about this. But over the weekend, this broad coalition, a racially diverse group, participating in the I Am Change March to the polls. This happened Saturday afternoon. And Alamance County Sheriff's deputies and Graham police pepper sprayed people, including a 5-year-old girl and other children who were participating. Law enforcement told people to clear the road. Some of them tried to comply, didn't give them time, moved in, pepper spray, arrested people. Apparently, at least one reporter was arrested, a photographer. No reason for it, none. North Carolina Attorney General and Governor have come out with statements. All eligible voters in North Carolina have a constitutional right to cast their votes safely and securely without threats of intimidation. The governor said this incident is unacceptable. Peaceful demonstrators should be able to have their voices heard, and voter intimidation in any form cannot be tolerated. So at least we got that. But the sheriff down there, Terry Johnson, this is not his first rodeo. He's got a long history of discrimination, racism in his policies and in his police force. This is what we're up against. So we have to be ready to face this sort of thing through Election Day tomorrow until the polls close, and even after the polls close, because you know there is no getting around it. When 6, 7, and 8 o'clock, whenever closing time rolls around, there will be people standing in line. And if you are standing in line when the polls close, you make sure that they know that you know that they have to let you vote. No one who's in line at the time the polls close can be turned away. If it takes until midnight or 6 o'clock the next morning, however long it takes you to get in and cast your ballot, the polls must remain open until every last person has voted. So you got to know that right. And when the polls do close, that's when it takes on this whole new flavor. And at this point, it's hard to imagine the deplorables backing down and just saying, okay, well, we lost. It's not in their nature. I've been saying for several days now, we need to fill the streets. But don't just go out and start throwing things. Go out with the commitment that you're going to be nonviolent. And if you can, go out with some kind of a plan and get yourself organized. And don't be alone. Get with other people. One site I found, protecttheresults.com. Organizing to protect the results of the 2020 election. Once again, protecttheresults.com. This looks pretty good. There are hundreds of events. You can find one or you can organize one yourself. You can host an event or find an event. Let me read a little bit from their website. Accepting the will of the people and allowing a peaceful transition of power is a hallmark of American democracy. But today, routinely ignores democratic norms and continues to chip away at democratic institutions. In 2016, he repeatedly threatened to undermine the election results, and his personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, has warned Congress that given my experience working for Mr. Trump, I fear that if he loses the election in 2020, there will never be a peaceful transition of power. Most recently, even threatened to deploy the United States military against the American people to quash peaceful protests. There is no line he won't cross. Yeah, if anybody at this point thinks this is an exaggeration, I don't know what world you're living in. If, when the polls close tomorrow night, if he tries to play his little game, declare victory, go right to the courts, try to stop the counting, he's got all of his troublemakers in the streets, it's going to take all of us together to fight that effort. This looks like a really nice tool. I would recommend you check out protecttheresults.com and either find an event or create an event and participate in this. Right now, I really do believe that we may well need a massive turnout of nonviolent demonstrators. So I would be ready for that. And then if the other scenario plays out, and when the polls close tomorrow night, it looks like, hey, you know what? It's over. There's nothing more to be said. It's clearly a victory for the good guys. Well, then your mobilization efforts haven't gone to waste. You're still out there. Have a big old damn party and dance till dawn. All right, hang in there, everybody. We don't know exactly where we're going to be 24 hours from now or 48 hours from now, but we will be together. All right, I love you. This is The Log. I'm Charles Purcell.